brought to you by UBOS. It's your right. For better agriculture, count for what counts. Census is here from 28th August to 6th September. When you take part in the census, the information you provide is used to make better policies and plans to improve service delivery in your community. To get ready to be counted. Stand up to be counted. Brought to you by UBOS. It's your right.
Today's highlight.
What kind of relationship do you have with this woman of the night to be able to make a deal, such a huge sale like this? Huh? How many other lies have you told me? Tell me, Estella, how many other lies?
Well, he made a complaint, Max, that his plane was sabotaged.
Oh, my.
And he listed your name as an enemy and as the possible perpetrator of the crime. Your name was listed as a suspect, Max.
Today's highlight.
And the change of government won't stop a thing. I've run out of fingers counting the number of multinationals setting up here. What about the 3 companies that announced their plans to launch last week? I say they're shopping. Me, I'd be looking to sell. At what price? More. Much, much more. I don't know who you are or how you know these things, but one thing I'm sure of, you're in the wrong job. Here, call me tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'd like to hear more from you.
Are you ready for your big break? The East African, understanding the region.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Good morning. This is Morning at NTV, the 5th day of August, a beautiful new month, I should like to say, the first Tuesday of this month. Thank you for joining us wherever you're joining us from, whether in your office already or if you're still at home or watching us from your iPad. Wherever you are, very good morning and welcome to the show that gets you started, the show with lots of insight, politics, sport, business, whatever you want. We have it all here. Brian on standby, Simon as well, Joel and Isma Dakabachigongo to make your morning brighter. So let us start it off with the question of the day. Have power. They say they have power of life and words have power of death. So this morning as you woke up, what were you saying over yourself? Did you say, oh, it's another day, how am I going to get through it? Or did you embrace the day as an opportunity for you to do something you have never done? And if you don't feel like doing anything, just encourage yourself by saying, I will do it, I am able to do it. Just be positive, speak over yourself, speak into your own life, and you'll see things change. Well, this is a Morning at NTV, and we'll continue the show by taking a look at what is making news. The Constitutional Court has ruled that President Yoweri Museveni was wrong to reappoint former Chief Justice Benjamin Odoki, who had clocked the mandatory retirement age of 70. By a majority of 4-1, the justices ruled that the advice of the Judicial Service Commission is a prerequisite for the appointment of the Chief Justice, which advice the President ignored. The ruling followed a petition filed by Western Region Youth MP Gerald Karuhanga challenging the president's decision to reappoint a retired Chief Justice on the advice of the Attorney General.
4 Constitutional Court Justices Lilian Tibatemwa, Solomon Bossa, Eldad Mwangusha and Remi Kasule ruled that President Yoweri Museveni violated the Constitution in seeking to reappoint retired Chief Justice Benjamin Odoki after he clocked the mandatory retirement age of 70. Justice Tibatemwa, who read the lead judgment, ruled that a retired Chief Justice is ineligible for reappointment as per the 1995 Constitution. She also ruled that the advice of the Judicial Service Commission is a prerequisite for the appointment of the Chief Justice, yet the President ignored it. Justice Tibatemwa, a former Makerere University law don, also castigated Attorney General Peter Nyombi for misadvising the President to reappoint retired Chief Justice Benjamin Odoki instead of helping him to choose from the names of the eminent Supreme Court justices submitted by the Judicial Service Commission, which did not include Odoki.
A person who attains 70 years is mandatorily commanded by the Constitution to vacate the office of Chief Justice.
Justices Solomon Bossa, Eldad Mwangusha and Remi Kasule largely concurred with Justice Tibatemwa, except in a few areas of law.
There was no requisite constitutional advice from the Judicial Service Commission upon which His Excellency the President could proceed to appoint Honorable Acting Justice Benjamin Odoki to be Chief Justice of Uganda.
Justice Ruby Opio Aweri dissented, ruling that the Constitution was not explicit on the reappointment of a retired Chief Justice as argued by the Attorney General. The petitioners were filled with joy following the ruling.
The victory today is the victory of the 83% youth of this country that have been looking for employment.
They have upheld all the objections that our client, the petitioner, raised before this very court.
Attorney General Peter Nyombi told NTV on phone that he would study the ruling and decide whether to appeal. Western Youth MP Gerald Karuhanga filed a petition last year challenging the president's move to reappoint former Chief Justice Benjamin Odoki, who had retired as provided in the Constitution. Suhail Mugabi, NTV.
A senior engineer at Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, Angelo Nkeza, has been appointed the new acting managing director following the dramatic ouster of Paul Chihika. Drama earlier ensued at Broadcast House, the UBC premises, here in Kampala, when police had to break into the MD's office since Chihika had gone away with the keys. He had also ordered security officers to block the new board members from accessing the premises. Board chairman Nathan Nabeta told NTV that Chihika's contract that had expired was not renewed and he had to leave. NTV's Solomon Seranja has that dramatic story from Broadcast House.
New board members of the Uganda Broadcasting Corporation were appointed a few months ago after the disbandment of the previous board for financial impropriety. But as the new members moved to officially assume their roles at the national broadcaster, police officers at the entrance blocked them on orders of the acting managing director, Paul Chihika. Chihika had reportedly handed the police officers a court statement, allegedly to block the new board from taking over, citing the ongoing case in the Constitutional Court filed by the old board challenging the appointment of the new board. Minutes later, more security personnel were deployed at the UBC premises. A source told NTV that this was after the authenticity of the court statement was questioned.
It is just an opinion from, I think, the registrar, and it has no binding force on the UBC board.
Board members including the chairman Nathan Nabeta, Simon Kaheru, Ian Cheyune were allowed into the premises. They then headed to the managing director's office, which was found closed. Embattled MD Paul Chihika had reportedly gone with the keys.
I called when he was entering this. I stopped him. It is true. I stopped him. But I called him. If Simon understands, I have no complaints.
Police was forced to call the fire and rescue team to break the doors open. The drama unfolded at Broadcast House on Nile Avenue here in Kampala as UBC staff members looked on. UBC board chairman Nathan Nabeta told NTV that Paul Kihika was relieved of his duties as MD in July, but he sought another 40 days to prepare to hand over, which request was rejected, but Kihika insisted on staying.
When you find him, you please tell him that actually we missed him. We had actually wanted to have him here in this handover.
The board appointed senior engineer Angelo Nkeza as the new acting UBC managing director.
Engineer Nkeza has had 30 years here so far. Actually, he started 30 years ago with UTV as the national broadcaster, and has here too been at the helm of the digital migration project.
Kihika was named acting managing director 3 years ago, taking over Musinguzi Mugasa, who was sacked amid similar controversy. Kihika's tenure has seen delayed staff salaries, financial mismanagement, and failure to remit staff NSSF contributions. It's a question of time whether the new board will redeem the national broadcaster of the perennial scandals. Solomon Serwanja, NTV.
Members of the Parliamentary Committee on Defence and Internal Affairs of Parliament have queried the deployment of police officers in 3 African countries without parliamentary approval. The officers were deployed in Liberia, the Central African Republic, and South Sudan for peacekeeping and advisory duties. Uganda already has police services officers serving in Somalia. Maurice Ochol reports that the police spokesman says they deployed in those countries under United Nations mandate.
In recent times, the Uganda Police Force first deployed abroad for a peacekeeping mission in Somalia in 2012 under the African Union mission AMISOM. There are about 600 Ugandan police officers in Somalia. But while scrutinizing the Ministerial Policy Statement for Internal Affairs for the 2014-2015 financial year, Parliamentary Committee on Defence and Internal Affairs found an anomaly. It emerged that the police had deployed officers in some African countries without parliamentary approval in violation of the Constitution.
This sort of surprised us, and it's one of the areas that we will want the sector leadership of the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Uganda Police Force to shed more light.
Committee Vice Chairman Peter Riaku wonders who authorized the illegal deployment and that it's not even clear how many police officers are involved and who pays their stay abroad.
How long are they there? Because they are part of the Uganda Police Force and we need to know. The policy statement indicates that we have the IPOs, the individual police officers deployed. But even then, they still remain part of the Uganda Police Force, and therefore we need to understand what were the arrangements.
The committee has now summoned the Internal Affairs Minister and other line officials to clear the air. But police spokesman Fred Enanga told NTV that they deployed in the South Sudan, the Central African Republic, and Liberia at the request of the United Nations.
An arrangement between the UN, which is an international body, as well as Uganda. So this arrangement was in close coordination with our Ministry for Foreign Affairs, which I feel, of course, Parliament should have been aware of.
He explained that this was not an ordinary deployment in groups, but one where individual police officers were taken on. The MP say they are only aware of the police deployment in Somalia under AMISOM mandate for training and limited peacekeeping. Maurice Ochol, NTV.
You're still watching Morning at NTV this Tuesday. We now cross over to Brian for today's press review. Good morning, Brian.
Morning, Mabel. And this morning, of course, very chilly, and it's the 5th day of August, very new month, and definitely what we're going to be looking at this morning, very new. In the red pepper, Museveni Minister joins Tinye rebels. Who is that, and where is he joining Tinye Funza from? Coming up in the press review. Thank you so much for staying with us. It's Tuesday, and from the rooftop of the Kampala Serena Hotel with the usual suspects, Simon Kasiati and Joel Senyonye. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
You sound, I think you're like me, and I've translated that in the way I'm dressed.
Why?
Very chilly, very calm.
Tuesday blues.
Why? What has Karumba
He's
done?
a true Muchiga.
Not Karumba. I have this little daughter of mine.
Mhm.
Look at how chill it is. A girl refuses to put on a sweater. She's gazumping and bulldozing the house helps. She does not want to listen. Then I get inside to bring her to school. And you imagine this weather, and a little girl of 6 years without a sweater. Man, these children who think they have rights.
Don't
These
they have
children
rights?
Who think they have rights.
But then
to
you
do
beat her, she
whatever
takes
they
you to
feel.
police. But then she have the right to refuse.
I'm waiting for police someone. So now you can guess what I've done to her.
I can imagine.
She has had a very, very, very interesting
Simon
ride.
Kasati. Is she in
So
hospital now or
you
what?
do not spare the road. Otherwise, you'll spoil this children. These children, you choose when to wear a sweater. You. Does she choose what her medical bill is going to be when she has pneumonia? Yeah, things that we cannot allow. Dear parents, you know, the things of letting children have their rights, they choose what to eat, they determine, now today I'm not going to eat this, yet it's what you can be able to provide. Then they choose when to wear a sweater and when not to wear it. The children must understand that whatever we parents do, we do it in their best interest.
How do you make them understand
Listen,
that?
the hard way.
How?
When you say put on a sweater, they shouldn't even ask why, how,
where.
what. They should just say how quickly. They shouldn't even put on
This guy
a
looks
sweater
like he
immediately.
beats his kids to pulp. I know the kid who was asked, what is a sweater? The kid said, a sweater is something I put on when mommy is feeling cold. And they asked why. The kid said, mommy usually says it's cold, put on a sweater. But look, kids, you're back from school, I'll tell you, by the time you realize your parents were right, you already have children who think you're wrong. So pick that Simon Kasate's daughter and the others who are on holiday.
Well, nice to see you, all the same.
Used to be nicely clad in these things, you know, without the jackets. Back in his heydays.
When it
You know,
was
but now he
colder.
has grown up.
Now it has become colder. And well, in the new day today, Daily Monitor, we have an interesting headline. The search for a chief justice is on. Yesterday, one of the lead petitioner, Honorable Karuhanga, says that the victory which they scored through the Constitutional Court, that was unconstitutional for a retired justice in the names of Benjamin Odoki to be reappointed as Chief Justice, that victory to quash that move is a victory for the 84% of Ugandan youth who have no job.
You got those words out of my mouth. I'm like, this young man, really, Honorable Karuhanga is
political
just,
capital.
yes.
He's trying to
Which
extrapolate something. Trying to, anyway. It's a case of squeezing juice out of a rock. Okay, fine. Ugandan youth, there is a job opening in the judiciary. The country is in search of justice. But from what I see here in the Daily Monitor, the top candidates for this job are the following youth. Justice, Honorable Justice Batka Turebe.
64 years.
The Honorable Justice Yorokamba Mwine.
Unnamed age.
And Mr. Peter Kabatsi.
They actually look older than the one of 64.
Well, no, looks could be deceptive. But you see, at the end of the day,
As long as you're not
where the
99.
Honorable Justice Batka Turebe comes from, of course, he leaves a gap, which is filled by someone right behind the line. So at the end of the day, there is more like what Karanga could be right. There's a domino effect, a ripple effect that you see. When you create a lacuna here, you know they call it a lacuna. Someone comes in to fill in the lacuna, they create a lacuna where they're coming from, like that, until at the end of the day,
what's the definition of
one
just
Mulondo who
youth?
is sitting, folding his arms in Butareja, jobless with his 1 degree, will possibly get a job at the
Not
end
too
of the
long ago, there were about 3,000 unoccupied jobs within civil service. You know, and the issue was we don't have competent people, we don't have people qualified to do that. So again, it probably gets back to that at the end of the day. But give it to Karuhanga. He's a man whose perspicacity is undenied. Despite his politicking. But
Karuhanga is probably the people who are frustrating
let's give it to him. At least for once, he has delivered something tangibly. You remember one time
he's a brilliant young man.
No, he's brilliant, but what has Karuhanga done for the young people?
He's created a job for them.
He has just created the one job, but also importantly, he has been in the media. He put himself as the vanguard of the war against corruption, in as much as he failed to substantiate his claims, which for me I thought that was a masterstroke of political lying. Then, of course, he's attempted so many things to cling on to them to get some political capital. But I think this one, let's give it to him. He has finally scored. He at least has arrived in the political canon that he's talking about. Whether we will remember this by the next election, so that we can reward him for it, is another story.
Let me read to you what Justice Benjamin Odoki says. There is no need for me to tie myself on anything. I have left the position to those who have applied. Even now, I'm ready to hand over power to the new Chief Justice.
He has some power to hand over? I thought all along he's been in abeyance.
He's never handed over, really.
Inside pages of the Daily Monitor, we are told that African leaders, 50 plus of them, are in the United States of America, in Washington, to be very specific, and our very own President Museveni is in there. And the Daily Monitor is giving us a sneak peek of what Obama is expected to discuss with the African leaders. Of course, all African leaders expectedly are there, except the one of Sudan, the one of Zimbabwe, and the one from Sierra Leone and Liberia. The last two are staying at home to, try to handle and be on the ground as they struggle with this fight against Ebola, while Zimbabwe and Sudan were graciously not invited, to which the government of Zimbabwe welcomed that suggestion and said they will spare no effort to try and create good relations with Washington, D.C., but obviously they will not allow Washington, D.C. to try and play God unto them.
Yeah.
And of course, the question was asked to the Foreign Affairs Minister for State, saying, but looks like America is dissatisfied with your human rights record. The people are beaten towards the elections. You don't respect human rights and all that. That's the reason why they've not invited you on the table. He said, well, to quote his words, said, that is one bunch of political hypocrisy. If America was very much interested in matters of human rights, they would possibly be seen to do something about the Israel-Gaza situation.
But you see, the other day you were hounding media people here who are reporting about the evictions at the railway side and that kind of thing. You're thinking, look, we are very biased. I'll tell you, I find the international media very biased. Look, we keep talking about, Israel hitting Gaza, but, we forget to report the stories of these guys, the Hamas. They propel their rockets from, say, UN centers, schools, etc., etc. As Israel retaliates, they hit at the very spot where these rockets are coming from. And oftentimes they're not. They usually send flyers and say, look, guys, we are going to hound this place, so we've got to evict children and that kind of thing, and they begin to retaliate, But you see, these things do not come out, and so Israel is seen as a very bad boy and that kind of thing. I do my research.
From where?
From you get to read, and but you see, it's just like just
saying,
let me just a minute. It's just that you'll find a story here, on front page, and you're thinking, really, is it what is here? But then there are some things here in fine print.
But in the
so you've got to dig deeper.
Because these newspapers, every page counts, because on it there is newsprint which is paid for. So whether a story is on the covers or inside, at least we give it credit to the newspaper that has carried it.
Point
you
is,
who says that that story exclusively is not reported.
No, I don't know it exclusively. It's all over the place. But you're saying, if you're saying Hamas is eating these guys, put the same. I mean, give it the same kind of weighing scale, if you like.
Wait a minute. Let's go look into the statistics here, perhaps. And you cannot actually tell me that the international media is biased against Israel. That one nobody will believe you. I'm sure you don't also believe yourself. The international media.
But the stories that are run from time to time are stories of kids who are dying because of the strikes from Israel, hitting
let's qualify it.
Hundreds, perhaps thousands of kids.
Vis-a-vis 1
Israeli soldiers.
No, Israeli civilians. 1, 2, 3. Israeli soldiers 63.
But Hamas quantifies its success to killing 8 Israeli soldiers. They've lost about, 100 civilians?
Maybe you're right, because the other day there was one Israeli prisoner of war who was exchanged for hundreds of Palestinians.
That valuable.
So if that's how they are valuable. But anyway, going back to this question of, I saw President Obama gloating how it's the first time any sitting American president has ever given some serious attention to Africa. Over 5 centuries after America was very much interested in Africa, they were here picking the strongest, tallest, and fittest of us. That's why perhaps you explains why the likes of Usain Bolt will always beat any African athlete. Of course, these are the best were picked from here over 5 centuries ago to go and dig in tobacco and all that. And now somehow, for some reason, they have woken up to realize that, Africa is rising and all that. That's
Bloomberg says we are the next economic power, and our leaders will
I'll
I'll tell you.
The Foreign Affairs Minister of Zimbabwe again. In all he says, thank you, Beijing. If it wasn't for you and putting up that formidable competition, Washington would never have realized how important Africa is.
Yes. Look, the 19th century belonged to Europe, the 20th century belonged to the US, the 21st century, we are told, belongs to China. However, I see Africa crashing that party if we stand up to be counted. With China.
With this?
With this?
With this?
Well, we still have many predicaments on our hands. We need to work a lot more.
But look, take a look at the picture of the day in the Daily Monitor here.
These are the evictees that
the evictees who have now, and Africa, you're saying is...
If we stand up to be counted, if we realize our potential, Africa has got lots of potential.
Talking about it, these guys need to stand up. They are lying down, sipping on Saket Waraji and playing cardboard games. These are very industrious young men, youth. who would possibly be engaged in some form of employment. Perhaps one of them would take up a lacuna that's been created in the judiciary.
But I want to give you an example that would bring to light what I'm pointing out here. Obama is committing $900 million to Africa. But some people have done the computations and they've realized that, look, $900 million. Do you know how much Africa exports to the US, for example, to the Western world? In just visa fees alone, these non-refundables, about $2.3 billion. That's just visa fees, leave alone the other things that we buy from them, etc., etc. We've got lots of potential in this country. We need
you talked about Beijing. I think China helped Africa a lot. First of all, it wrote off all the loans. Now it opened markets for our goods. While they are still controlling the projects that they do in Africa, with Simon's friends at CNOC, at least Beijing is a powerhouse.
Well, it seems like
even the economists in the US, the businessmen in the US, the Trumps of this world are investing in China. So,
you see, China seems like a very good friend to us. They're doing a couple of things here and there, but we need to open our eyes very wide open. No country wants you to get better at their expense. Not a single one. Brian, if you are helping me, if you're helping my family, you're not doing it with the hope that I should get better than you. Not at all. So we need to be wise.
For democratic changes blaming Museveni for homosexuality law blunder.
And then the church.
And I can tell you, I told you, opposition in Uganda, for as long as you must be, you said stand up and be counted. Rainwater harvest is good, says Museveni. If you're an opposition leader, you must say, no, rainwater harvest is bad. Oxygen is what keeps this world revolving. If you're an opposition leader in Uganda, no, it is nitrogen. Morning at NTV's press review is one of the most watched programs, says Museveni. If you're an opposition leader, you must put your foot on the ground and say, even as you watch it, no, that is not true.
The press review of Omumuli is better. But you see, you talk about FDC blaming Museveni for homosexuality blunder. Church is criticizing court over anti-gays law. Look, I'm cutting some slack to court, and I hope not to be misconstrued here. I think if court realizes that this law was actually passed without quorum, I'm a regulation freak, and I like things to be done the right way. I want this law in place, but it should be passed the right way. I'd be bothered with court, if you talked about the contents of the law, etc., etc. But they're saying, look, you passed this thing without quorum. Take it back and pass it with quorum. Can we do that?
And then after that, we can say, but you see this activist from
then they are
from FDC.
They will see fire from me.
The FDC activist is saying, I'm disturbed by religious leaders who are blaming court for passing this law. They should blame President Museveni, who signed a nullity into law. Well, what about you, members of FDC? You are 20. I mean, 20 of them. Were you all present that day to be counted?
I ended walk-to-work crisis, says Mrs. Mbabazi.
How did she end it?
She said, I have to praise the successful efforts of the ruling National Resistance Movement Women's League in fulfilling it.
At least you can see that there's something being
done. And the point I'm making is, if there was no this confusion, they would actually do a whole lot more. So if there is that potential, if they're posting returns, how much more if there was no confusion of now there's this boss there, he's trying to concentrate, trying to get to do his work, then he's being hounded and that kind of thing. You can't deliver as much as you should be able to.
So doesn't that lend credence, therefore, to the arguments that have been put left, right, and center? Sometimes we Ugandans have our own very bad managers, and sometimes it takes us to now relinquish what would otherwise been our national heritage to be managed and run effectively by others from another. Case in point,
if we look,
the hydropower station in
Kalango. But if we look at national broadcasters across the whole world, don't they carry the same issues? Somehow, national broadcasters never get it. The quality is always down. Of course, and understand.
Don't speak for BBC, please.
Because much of the time,
don't speak for VOA.
You especially talk about African countries here, aren't you?
In America.
Where?
Voice of America.
But if governments here are failing to deliver on their mandates, as government institutions, how are they going to be good businessmen? I think governments need to get to a point where they have eyes on but hands off.
No, but you have corporations that are government-owned fully that are running effectively and posting very good returns.
Case in point,
South African National Water and Sewerage Corporation. I mean, this is one company that you say, well, it is fully.
By the way, I've had lots of undercurrents down there, and some people are saying they're digging up things, that seem not to be out there. But I see your point of, look, if government actually you know, it has its eyes on, but hands off, then things begin to move, you know. But if we are going to increasing, we keep seeing this.
Well, after the court nullifying the anti-homosexuality law, Red Pepper this morning on page 5 says the wealth of pro-gay MPs revealed.
And who are these
Could
MPs?
it be from the support of...
What are you talking about now? My good friend Sam Otada has been rich from the time before his parents possibly met. Fox Odo, same story.
Abdul
Katuntu, really. So, I mean, this is the whole thing of extrapolating that because the Chief Justice Odoke has been denied a job, therefore 84% of unemployed youth are going to get jobs. I mean, at the end of the day...
Our youth want condoms, and they asked the youth minister Chibule for condoms in Mukono district. Is that
I don't think that would be a problem for Chibule. That for me, him is like...
You can give away sacks of money.
It's like finding me in a bar on the stool and asking me for a beer. By the fact that I am in there means that I am able to provide a beer.
Hey,
Chibude,
so what
that's
are you saying?
The list of Chibude's problems to offer to the youth would be kilograms, perhaps even tons of condoms. More so the ones in Mukono. It's a small area. Supposing the whole country asks him for condoms, which I'm sure it's about to.
Quote of the day here, this is by Minister John Biabagambi on cancellation of railway contract. I don't have a contract with anybody. I only signed a loose MOU. Therefore, we've not cancelled any contract. Again, we see ping pong here and there. The other one says, you signed the contract, don't revoke it. This one says, I didn't sign any contract. And they're all government officials.
And then eventually, before you know it, there will not be any railway here in this place. Other countries, meanwhile, are progressing. The dictatorial haven that you call Rwanda is progressing with the same project. Kenya, the one which is bombarded every other day by dissidents from some weird terrorist groups, is progressing. Here we are in peacetime, and what are we doing in our peacetime? Bickering and trying to cut deals from
and asking for more condoms.
You know, yesterday, following the story in Rwanda where power is shared, if you know, I eventually I was reading the full story. If you have a president, obviously our president is going to be here for the next 12 years.
Which president?
President Yoweri Museveni.
How do you know that?
How do I know? Do I need...
You must know something we don't.
No, you guys don't have vision. That's why. You guys
this man wears specs, sure. They cut him some stuff.
I haven't doubted him.
You guys
It is
don't
you who's
have
doubting
vision.
him. You're doubting Thomas. The man is showing you he's showing you wounds of his pricks, and you are saying that are you the resurrected Lord?
You guys don't have vision. But Norbert Mao being Prime Minister, or Besigye being this, and Deputy Speaker of Parliament is maybe Ken Luchamuzi, the Speaker of Parliament being Nandala Mafabi, and all these men who are in different political parties come together and drive this country forward.
That's what's going to ameliorate this country.
No, do you think
Let me
that
cut
would
this
be a
government
great
some slack,
alternative to multi-party politics, which we have failed to get in this
Did
country?
you try to position John Ken Lucham somewhere, a guy of one party?
Okay, let him be Minister for Environment, because he's passionate about that. But
he's being
you
passionate
see all
about
these
and
great
he's being
minds.
comical about issues. I think we must understand between passion that results from actual doing, as opposed to comic blabbering and being out there and good for nothing, just good to catch the press's eye. I mean, at the end of the day, I have realized there is one thing being on stage and acting, and then there's another being actually very serious and performing some duties. And I can tell you, for the most part, most of our opposition, in fact, I can tell you, Uganda's opposition is in a better position remaining in the opposition. The moment if they ever got into government, it would expose their malaise, their bankruptcy, even incompetence on basic issues.
Really?
So they are better off remaining there to say, Brian Museveni says oxygen is good. No, oxygen is bad, says the opposition. That would give them some kind of bad leverage. Otherwise, if they go inside government, they will get swallowed up by the sheer...
I think you're trivializing the role of the opposition here, because then when you
Perhaps
say that,
because
you
they
realize
themselves.
they have no role. But if we say we try to copy that, where the president is from another party and the constitution of Rwanda does not allow the president and the vice president to come from the same party, bringing these great minds together, would that save us from
You're talking about
all
great
this?
minds. I'll tell you,
Remove the word
Brian.
great. Just put these minds together.
There are some
biggest
great
need
minds
here,
in the
Brian.
opposition. They just belong with a couple of
They're in
people
the wrong
who,
place, eh?
If you, and no offense.
No,
if
without
you,
a doubt, yes,
If
of
you
course, I mean-
are on the same table with Mugati Gwabata, whose
But you see the
agenda is to
examples you're
be
using
out
now,
there, you kind of,
What is Mugati Gwabata?
Your friend,
Your friend
Munyagwa.
Munyagwa.
Brian, I do not think our biggest issue here is the need, to, create schisms and create power for this one and the other one. Look, even if this government actually, stayed single-handedly to do things, as long as there's no ineptitude, as long as you're delivering services, for me at the end of the day, that's what I want, So if power sharing is going to actually ensure that there are going to be services delivered at the end of the day, maybe so. But is that the case? I'm not too sure about that, So yes, we'll appease ourselves and say, all right, now these ones are also eating, the other ones, etc., etc. Our biggest requirement in this country is that whoever is in power, can you actually deliver on the promises you made? We don't see that, unfortunately. So power sharing,
it may
I don't
not
know.
work. Well,
this one might sound, like music to Simon's ears. Somebody writes here and says, Uganda's legislature is an accident waiting to happen.
Waiting? Come on.
It has happened already.
Where have you been when these accidents have been happening all over the place?
I think this one is now relating. Yes, the
Wait a minute. Is there a date to that article? Because I'm sure Nicholas is a well-meaning guy. He possibly wrote this 2 years ago.
This is in today's
Well,
Daily
Mabel,
Monitor Tuesday, August 5th.
a story that we definitely skip, but we also have some young African leaders on the Yali network, also in Washington, who have been meeting the president of a couple of times. But that
president?
is also President Obama. That is also making headlines across the world. But of course, the tension in Ukraine is dominating the headlines. The tension, I was very shocked, Ebola is now an outbreak in the U.S. after
No, it's
Uganda
not.
has... Yeah, well...
An outbreak in the
They've
US.
declared it an outbreak.
No, they've
because
actually...
of one doctor who was flown back.
And that makes it an outbreak. No, he was actually flown to get better treatment and that kind of thing. There's another who is yet to be taken
And
there.
that's my question. The U.S. is declaring this an outbreak when their own citizen has finally caught on the virus. Where have they been? My question has always been, where have they been when we are suffering? How much?
And do you think they care so much about you? Wake up, Africa.
And I posted that they should ask for Ugandan doctors to save. Let us go to America and save them of the Ebola outbreak. Maybe what is making headlines on the international scene?
Thank you very much, Brian. Actually, all that you have mentioned is making headlines, but it's actually interesting that you start with Ebola because people are asking, why is it that this medicine was only made available, this trial drug was only made available to the American doctor and the missionary who suffered from the disease? They want to know how the medicine works. It's actually called ZMapp. And who makes the drug? These are all questions that people are asking, and we shall talk more about that as we look through. Starting us off here is Russia to hold war games in a show of strength near Ukraine, a story on the Reuters page. Russia is starting a military exercise to show their strength as the Ukrainian army captured more territory from the pro-Russian separatists, and some of this includes missile firing practices. This is something that is actually scaring the Western powers. Putin is just going all out. I'm sure he's saying, you want me, come and get me. Now, yesterday we did see was the commemoration of the start of World War I. 100 years ago, World War I started. Now, this is actually a picture of Lord Kitchener. If you remember your history, he was the Minister of Defense, I should say, at the time. And this is a newspaper, a London newspaper, 5th September 1914. Very interesting here. And he is basically calling, the words here are, your country needs you. He's basically calling upon young men, I think, most probably, I don't think women were allowed to fight at the time, to join the army in this fight of World War I. This is a war that lasted almost 4 years till 1918. Also on the BBC page, mapping the human cost in Gaza of this war. Over 1,800 Palestinians have been killed and an estimated 400,000 have been displaced. About 66 Israelis have been killed, all but 2 are Israeli soldiers. Moving on, the Ebola crisis, the World Bank has announced a 200 million emergency fund. This is especially as the world leaders, the African world leaders, gather to meet in America today. Ebola will be high on the agenda in Washington. A worry ceasefire. Israel and Hamas agreed to a truce rejected 2 days ago. Both sides are still skeptical. They appeared suspicious of each other, but they have agreed to a ceasefire starting today. So we hope we will see some bit of peace there. Again, questions about this new Ebola virus. The World Health Organization says it wasn't involved in it. This is the doctor and the missionary who were given this secret serum are actually showing signs of improvement. So people want to know if it will be made available to other Africans, why it wasn't made available in the first place. Yes, it is a trial drug, but clearly it has helped the doctor and the missionary who has also been flown back to the United States. So people are not too happy. And as Brian said earlier, people are also not happy that those two were flown back to America. On the Sky News page, we have Israel and Hamas agreeing to the 72-hour truce as negotiations still take place. Lots of officials from Cairo being part of that. Now, yesterday we saw the Commonwealth Games come to a close. They will next be held in Australia, and Australia is promising to deliver the best Commonwealth Games. Now, again, we did talk about the World War I commemoration, a centenary now, and world leaders here uniting to show, you know, I guess to remember the people who sacrificed their lives during World War I. We can see here there the Duchess of Cambridge with her husband and David Cameron and Prince Harry there, and again, Kate and William. Kate there laying a wreath as world leaders marked the start of World War I 100 years ago. That's all we had for you morning at NTV. We'll continue after this break.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
Yes, Towakana with 1 million shillings up for grabs every day. Kagwida Woku Airtel Money. Simply send and receive money. Top up your airtime or data. Pay for utility bills, groceries, fuel, and much more with Airtel Money. And you could be one of the day's 5 lucky winners. And if Mr. Money and his crew find you making a transaction, you win cash on the spot. Terms and conditions apply.
Airtel Money. Simple, secure, instant.
Hey there, Mr. Krabs! Are you ready to party?
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it, move it.
Wow! Hello, fellow motor enthusiastics.
Oh, Mr. Krabs! Isn't there any way for us to return all of them back to normal?
Hey! How'd he do that?
The Red Ranger's a bigger problem than I thought.
It's time to finish this thing up!
What can I do to make them love me again?
What are you drawing, Kitty?
Mega Rangers? Yeah. That's a mega win!
Hello?
King Julian, you are truly inspiring.
Ow! SpongeBob! Fantastic!
We transact every day, and for centuries, currencies have changed hands. Business is a must, and that is why Money Matters makes it a must to talk business.
It's the biggest market out in Uganda because of East African connections and business.
From farming to business trading, we give you all the angles.
When you're harvesting, that one is the most important part, which we have to be there.
We'll bring you all the details that doing business has to offer.
Thoughts of the business leaders in the market.
The airline industry doesn't operate like any other industry, where you go in and buy a shirt and this shirt is 20 shillings today, it will be 20 shillings tomorrow, 20 shillings.
The analysis of the costs and the income in the industries.
From wherever we are,
we talk business, and at Money Matters,
where money indeed matters.
Business is a must.
So, don't miss Talking Business with us every Thursday only on NTV.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
Welcome back. What would Simon Kasiate do without his bow tie? A question here on our Facebook page. If you haven't yet visited our Facebook page, please head over to our Facebook page, Morning at NTV. A beautiful picture here of Simon smiling, and we will now cross over to Simon for today's big story. Good morning, Simon.
Yes, good morning, Mabel, and yes, thanks for joining us for yet another edition of Morning at NTV's Big Story. And yes, many times we are told of how bad the education situation in this country is, but maybe we don't actually believe those horror stories simply because they're just anecdotal findings picked up by different people from the various places that they visit. But this morning we are going to look at an empirical research carried out not across the country but in one district, just to paint the picture of one locality of how gross the issue of especially lower education is. We'll be right back. Very good morning once again, and welcome to this edition of Morning at NTV's Big Story. My name is Simon Kasiate. On this wonderful Tuesday morning, we're discussing education. Now, we know that last week Transparency International Uganda did release a report that paints a very gloomy picture of the education in government schools in one district, and we're talking about Wakiso districts. Now, the findings in this survey reported by Transparency International Uganda indicate that the quality of education in Wakiso district is, for lack of a better word, very poor. Now, I have with me the pleasure of hosting Eddie Kayinda, a research consultant with Transparency International Uganda, who carried out this research. Good morning, Eddie.
Good morning, Simon. How are you?
Tell us more about this research. I mean, what was the motivation of setting up this research, and why do you restrict yourselves to only Wakiso district?
First of all, I work with Multitech Business School. I'm the head of research and projects at the school. Transparency International hired us to conduct this study on their behalf in Wakiso district. It's looking at basically education and health. While looking at these two sectors, these are the most pertinent sectors of social services in the country. We need to have better schools, we need to have better health systems to have a productive and healthy population. Majorly, we're looking at UPE schools and health centers at the level of Health Center 3, 4 and 1 grade B hospital in Entebbe municipality.
So if we restrict ourselves to the UPE schools, because that's what we're discussing this very morning, what is it that you found on the ground?
First of all, I have to appreciate government that there was this innovation of UPE. One, we have numbers that have been increasing from 2 million pupils to around 8.5 today.
In Wakiso or across the country?
Across the country. But when we take a sample of Wakiso, Wakiso has about 160,000 UPE pupils in about 256 schools. Okay. The issues that are pertinent in this report that we can talk of is funding, the quality of education, the supervision of education, and infrastructure. This was the focus of the whole study.
Funding of these schools. What's wrong with the funding?
First of all, funding is low according to what we found out in the school. For example, on average, each quarter, a school receives not more than 500,000 shillings to run for a whole term in capitation, leave alone payment of salaries and infrastructure development. Each student gets about an average of 750 shillings per quarter. There's a transformation to terms. Previously it was quarters, but on average, at district level, based on the information we got from the DEO, each pupil receives about 750 shillings, Uganda shillings in a quarter. That is on average, in a year, child may get about 6,000 by any standards.
Now that is supposed to be for what?
Capitation supposed to be for scholastic materials.
But I thought scholastic materials are bought by their parents.
No.
Scholastic
materials,
about
chalk.
Those are instruction materials.
Yes, exactly. Any other aids that are supposed to be used by the students, my teachers in class to deliver instruction and learning. Any other materials, administration, contingency, co-curricular activities, among others. Now, for a child to spend about 6,000 shillings in a year for this, it's really not proper for any good education system.
But you see, what I don't understand is you try to blame the government. Why do you expect government to make money?
No.
People who have their children in UPE schools don't, for the most part, contribute to national development. They don't contribute to the national coffers substantially.
Yes.
A guy is there, all he has done is sire 8 children, government has helped him and he's taking his children for free to school, and now what he does is go back, spend his time in the bar and making more babies. He has no incentive to work because someone is shouldering the burden for him. And you are now coming to blame government again for not giving enough to a child of a non-contributing member of society.
No.
Why do we not cut slack to, why don't we point a finger at irresponsible parenting and irresponsible citizenry? Didn't you see that in your report? That many children are in school, but when you look at their own quality, do they look well fed to you? When you look at the children?
Of course they're
so the school is supposed to feed them?
No.
Do they look bathed? Do they look clean? I think when we do this research, let's not restrict ourselves to the boundaries that are dictated unto us by transparency report and all that.
Exactly.
We need to ask a few of these things. This morning I'm extremely vexed by my daughter who has a sweater and refuses to wear it.
Exactly.
You see me, I have a sweater, I have got a shirt, I have got, you know. Supposing I was unable to provide a sweater for my child, and yet I have a sweater on myself, would you blame government for not giving it?
That is the exact thing they're talking about, that the government has taken over education, but it has failed to inform the parents about their role to educate their own
minute,
children.
Mr. Muyinda.
Yes.
Kayinda.
Yes.
So government must have told me
exactly
to fend for my child and feed them better.
No. Information, education, and communication about your role as a parent and our role as government.
But wait a minute, Kayinda.
Yes.
Are you a parent?
Yes, I'm a parent.
So an RDC came to your home and taught you how to become a parent?
No.
Your father was taught how to be a good parent to you by the DC. His father was taught by the colonialists how to be a good parent?
Yes.
The Kabak of Buganda how to teach him? No.
Parenting
is, I mean,
look, we had our own traditional
if
values.
I have a cat at home that just gave birth,
yes,
you have no idea how much is taking care of its kittens.
Exactly.
If cats, pussycats, if dogs, if cows can take care of their children and leave it to the responsibility of nobody, why should we human beings with all our senses expect that a certain thing called government, which even for the most part we don't contribute to, and that's why I'm telling you the quality of people that are sending their children to UPE schools, I expect government to fend for the children. I was asking you, did these children look bathed to you?
Of course not.
So government should bathe them?
No. What I'm trying to say is that what are the traditional values, roles of parents in Uganda today? Government came up to say that, you see, UPE is free, take your children to school. They're not supposed to pay a penny. Actually, Simon, let me tell you that this will not work. I personally, I've tried out this. I have a school, right? I've got parents whose children have been in UPE schools paying 5,000 or 6,000 shillings. Set up a private school, convince them that you can actually pay 75,000 shillings per child. And they're paying the money. And they have got their children from UPE to a private school, right? What I'm trying to say is that the parents, when government told
gives
the
them
parents
that incentive that is going to be for free, then
they
we
take
relax.
We relax. However, if it
Good
came out
message
to
government,
if it came out to mobilize the parents, tell them what are your roles, what is government supposed to do, what is the school supposed to do, and the parents, we shall have a better education.
But
because
me,
the
Mr.
parents have the
Kayinda,
capacity to do it.
Don't you also think
pay
that
the money.
Ugandans are extremely bad? These ones who are watching us,
Yes.
they have got such a dependency syndrome. When a Ugandan comes to you and you offer him 10,000 shillings,
yes,
he would turn you into a shop.
Of
He will
course.
always come back to you because he expects to give you that money. even
Because
if
of the
that's not-
mindset.
Because of the mindset.
Exactly.
And so you are saying that government should become frugal, mean and say there is no such a thing as a free lunch.
Exactly.
That an education, if you want one for your child, must be paid for and paid for heavily. Healthcare, if you want some, you must be given. It must be given to you. In other words, we should not pretend about it. That's a welfare state.
No. We shouldn't. We shouldn't.
What beats my understanding is that indeed, just like you said, you made a comparison between private and UPE schools. The numbers in UPE schools are increasing. So are the numbers in private schools. What would you suggest to government, especially coming in from your report, that these traditionally government-aided schools should be privatized?
No. We shouldn't privatize because it's the role of the government to provide a better education to the children. What they should
But if
come out
government
to,
has showed that they are unable to provide that education.
What they should come out to is to identify what strategies have the private sector used to ensure that there is quality education in the schools. what kind of leave can they borrow from those that are running private schools? Secondly,
but let me ask you
what
something.
kind of incentives should...
We have a Minister of Education.
Exactly.
One of the ministers, Chrysostom Muyingo.
Exactly.
He's superintending over a whole Ministry of Education.
And he's in the private sector.
But I know that he has got very competent and highly performing private personal schools. How come he, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons as to why he was put in the Ministry of Education, because government believed he had the competence. Since he has run his Namugongo school successfully, he should be able to transplant the same into a government structure and make your government a better education
Now
provider.
that comes in the issue of priorities. Is the priority of government providing better education to the level of what Muyingo can provide? Right?
So Muyingo is one hell of a frustrated guy in there. He's got all the ideas in his head, but they cannot be accentuated.
Priority is now different. Okay, we shall not blame so much government, because we are running under a constrained budget, right? But even within the limited budget that we have, how can we make education better? What kind of resources do we have, and how do we use them at the school level? We have found out
government here has realized that our economy is private sector led.
Exactly.
Government has realized it cannot effectively carry out business. That's why they privatize most of these government parastatals. Why wouldn't government face the realization that yes, we know that education is a basic human amenity, supposed to be provided for by the state, but we as the state are unable to provide it. And then we pass it out the likes of Kayinda and others who have the proficiency, nuance to run these schools.
I'm a school of public administration, and that would be one of the characteristics of a failed state. Right?
But well, if one that is not
providing... A state must provide education,
but if it is not...
provide health, it must provide water and sanitation and any other services.
Maybe that is a welfare state. I think we also need
No. At the basic minute level, the government must provide basic education, whether welfare, whether developing, whether developed. That is the role of government.
So now when you finish making this report and have these recommendations, what is the key recommendation that you're putting before to government?
One, prioritize education. Two, if the government has seen that, I mean, from such kind of reports, if there's a feeling that education through UP has failed, let us go back to cost sharing. Simon, between you and me, we started when our parents were contributing money. That is why we're a product of this education. Let's go back and introduce cost sharing in schools. Let the parents pay some money. And I can assure you, they have the capacity to pay. Whether he pays 5,000 or 10,000 shillings per
but you know very well
that per week.
The reason UP came at the end of the political expedience that President Museveni needed to see himself as the provider of all the things. Bonaba Some, Bonaba Gagawade, Bonaba Jirechi, Bonaba, you know.
That is the politics of populism I'm talking about. Because this person is telling, look, give me votes, I'll give you education. Right? After when the students have converged in school, what else? The teachers are disengaged.
Wakiso is a largely cosmopolitan area, centrally located. I mean, it almost surrounds Kampala. So it is regarded, for the most part, as some kind of an urban setting. But you are showing us grim statistics. One of the use of projection. What do you think would happen if you went and carried out the same survey?
One of the key issues that we pointed out as Multitech in this research was Wakiso is cosmopolitan, just like you said, but it has characteristics of a hard-to-reach district. Now, what would happen to Karamoja? What would happen to Agago in northern Uganda, right? We're saying that if the situation is so bad
within
Wakiso, what happens to...
the farther you go away from the capital?
Exactly. That is why I've recommended to TI and the Dawn and CEDA that funded this project. Can we do a comparative study about what happens in the rural areas compared to Wakiso, where we think that people are a bit urban? You need to go to these schools and look at the infrastructure. You look at the teachers. Everybody is disengaged. That's the child has been left alone.
Yeah, did you find teachers in schools?
That's what I'm trying to tell you, that the level of absenteeism is so high, according to...
And they're the same characters who are asking for more pay. Exactly. So they are absent from school because they have not been paid. How much are they working for the little that they are paid?
Simon, let me tell you something.
Did you ask those questions?
The teachers themselves that are teaching in these UP schools do not have the children in UP schools because they know the challenges of UP schools.
What?
Right? Yes, exactly. The teachers that are teaching these UP schools, they do not have the children in the UP schools. What do you expect them to do? That this teacher is teaching, but a child in the private sector, he needs to get fees for the child in the private sector.
So they engage in other activities?
He must be engaged in other activities, right?
Eddie Kainda, research consultant from MartTech, but carried out this research on behalf of Transparency International Uganda. We can thank you more for joining us and elucidating more on these otherwise grim findings, and we believe and hope that maybe someone in government, especially Christo Muyingo, has been watching, so that possibly this can be put into some action, as opposed to it being a subject of talk shops and workshops and talk shows like is happening this very wonderful morning. Let's take a short break and return. It's Simon Says. Every morning, I do implore all of us to have a productive day. I do not know whether among the you who are watching us this morning, who I implore every morning to have a productive day, are school children, school teachers, government officials, or whatever that you are. And whether or not, when I talk about being productive, you understand it in the sense in which I say it. Productive, I mean, let's go and do what is expected of us so that we can put the basic amenities on our table for our enjoyment and the enjoyment of those whose lives we touch. Many of you, looks like when I say being productive, you think of making children, producing children, literally. Well, that's part of it, perhaps, but that shouldn't be the only angle to the word being productive. For the primary school teachers who absent themselves in areas like Wakiso, as we've just heard this morning, shame on you. You clamor that you are not paid, but how much do you work for the little that you are paid? For the government is supposed to provide these basic amenities like education and healthcare. And you are certainly providing this that we are seeing in Wakiso district. An otherwise central and urban constituency that has the characteristics of a far-flung area. Shame on you. That's not being productive. Can we prioritize? Can we know what is expected of us? Can we perform to meet those expectations? Perhaps also, even more shame is to we, the citizens, who never hold our leaders to some serious accountability. We are complacent and we are subservient. And like they already said, a people get the kind of leadership that they deserve. Maybe what we have today is what we deserve because we never ask the defining questions and we never use our votes wisely. Have a productive Tuesday morning, in whichever way you look at it.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat. Follow the beat. Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat. Follow the beat. Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Stand up to be counted. Brought to you by UBOS. It's your right. For better agriculture, count for what counts. Census is here from 28th August to 6th September. When you take part in the census, the information you provide is used to make better policies and plans to improve service delivery in your community. To get ready to be counted. Stand up to be counted. Brought to you by UBOS. It's your right.
Hey there, Mr. Krabs. Are you ready to party?
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it.
Wow. Hello, fellow motor enthusiastics.
Oh, Mr. Krabs, isn't there any way for us to return all of them back to normal?
Hey, how'd he do that?
The Red Ranger's a bigger problem than I thought.
It's time to finish this thing up. What can I do to make them love me again?
What are you drawing, Kitty? King Julian, you are truly inspiring.
Ow! SpongeBob! Fantastic!
Oba onyumirwa ebyemizannyo jangu nkulage.
Does! And Adam Johnson, the boyhood Newcastle United man, Derek, flying in the face of all football logic. A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie. Ferdinand! Everton lead at Old Trafford. Walcott, Giroud! Suarez. Super Suarez. And backs it up. And wraps it in. Checo. Finds the net. It's spectacular slide. Robert. Penalty for Borussia Dortmund. He scores.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jesus came to set you free and to be free indeed.
In life, you don't wait. There are certain times where you wait for certain decisions, but when it comes to taking action and choices, you have to move.
Jesus Christ found me, and he actually asked me a question, whether I wanted to live or to die.
Every day of my life was struggling. It's just that God has given me this kind of hope.
GXP every Sunday only on NTV, your official inspiration station.
I'm going to blow your mind and I'm going to twist your taste buds. The flavors are already coming together. I can feel them. Very lovely, very appetizing, very healthy. Remember, the way you see it, the way you like it, is the way you get it from my kitchen to your kitchen.
Ekifo ekimu kissa wamusu n'ekyalo ekiweddeko abamanye bakiraza mumwa. Tugenda kutuuka gy'oli oyogere naffe ebikwata ku kyalo kyo, embeera mw'okolera, ebyobufuzi, ebyobulamu n'ensonga endala nnyingi. Ebyogerwa tebiyita. Tuusa eddoboozi lyo, yogera naffe buli lwakuna butereevu ku NTV Akawungeezi.
On the next episode, brought to you by...
At Orange, we know you want to do more on the internet. That's why we bring you happy hour day and night.
Destiny River.
I know my son Fred is worth a lot more than that, and you'll have more than that. You will. When you disappear from here.
Then give it to me straight. Doctor, tell me the results. Am I pregnant?
I haven't opened the envelope. Let's find out together.
In his eyes, he looked like he wanted to kill him.
Interesting. Solana Rangel wanted to kill Victor Villar.
Yeah.
Destiny River.
You can download movies at the lowest prices and never fast from Orange. Dial *133# to buy a data bundle. Happy hour changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning at NTV this Tuesday, the 5th of August. On to some of your messages on Facebook regarding the press review. We have Sunday saying, Kasiate, I believe some opposition leaders are being used by NRM. Good morning. And on to comments on the big story where we had Kahinda being hosted by Simon Kasiate. Felix says, government is misled. How can an MP fail to buy an iPad and the poor people manage to take care of their children in the villages? And he also goes on to say they can increase, but what about the teachers in classrooms? And the performance, will it also increase? This is because Wakiso, the example they gave, has about 160,000 UPE pupils with only 250 schools. Again, on average, each quarter, each school gets about 500,000 shillings as capitation grant, which means each student gets about 7,000 shillings. Now, Senyonga Philip asks, oh, what kind of education is this? We also have Bwayo Robert saying 7,000 per pupil per term. And Joshua here says, that's great news. So I guess it depends on which side you actually sit. If it could be good news for one or bad news for the other. We shall now cross over to Brian for today's Everyday Life. Good morning, Brian.
That if you are called to be a sweeper, you should sweep the streets so clean, like Michelangelo painted, like Shakespeare wrote poetry, so that at the end of the day, even the hosts in heaven say, there once lived a man who was a great sweeper. This morning, we're going to look at how you can definitely aim for whatever you're doing so that you're excellent at it. Some of the fears, some of the rules, and Samuel Bakutana from Delta Communications is going to help us get to that level. Get ready for Inspirational Tuesday on Everyday Life. What is it? Samuel, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Brian.
I promise I'll bring you back.
Thank you very much for honoring your promise. That is part of excellent living.
You are saying the great sweeper concept
Exactly.
is awesome. What stops us from becoming great sweepers?
Quite a lot of things, but first and foremost, it begins with the attitude, as I have always said, because it begins with your mind. If you think you can, yes, you can. If you think you can't, you are absolutely right. So if you think, it's all about what you think. If you think that you can be a great sweeper, you can. Because you see, it's not about where your position lies on the hierarchy, on the organogram, on the organizational chart. No, it's about what you are doing wherever you are placed. So whether you are the CEO of an organization, or you are a presenter on radio, or you are a broadcaster on TV, or you are just a sweeper like you have said, do what you are doing to the best of your ability, exceptionally, stupendously, beyond average, far above average, as much as you can, to the finest of the quality of whatever you are doing. That is what excellence is about. So that's why I said I really admire the great sweeper concept.
Yeah.
So that now you are still alive. But that time when you will no longer be alive, people who will still be alive will say that once upon a time there lived a great sweeper called so-and-so. And that makes a whole difference.
Most of the time, you know, I've met a couple of people who have stayed on the job for 15 years.
Yeah.
And from time to time, they'll keep complaining. I'm tired of this job. I'm tired of this. But also, there are people who will not stay at a job for more than 2 years.
True.
The moment they feel tired, they're like, it's time for going to the next one. But for the people who have been stagnating at that job for long, many years.
Yeah. Involuntarily, add that.
Fantastic. I think that's the word I was looking for. What happens there? They know the point where they need to go.
Yeah, sure.
But they're at this place. And somehow they never get
to where they want to be.
The jet never takes off to the place they want to
be. Brian, part of excellency and part of going through the ladders, if I am to call it that way, is to know where you want to be. So you may say that they want to go to that place, but they haven't reached there as yet. One of the reasons could be that they haven't excelled at understanding that place that you are calling there. While they are here, they haven't understood the there.
Do I have to understand?
Exactly. You need to know what you want. If you don't know where you are going to, every road is the right road. You will go to a taxi park and the conductor is saying, wherever you are going, enter, and you will enter.
Yes.
But when the conductor says, wherever you are going, where is that? You get the point. So the first thing to get there where you want to be is to know there where you want to be. That's the first and foremost thing.
Yes.
But putting that aside, most of the people who are stagnating in their jobs, in their work, in their different things, whether you are in a position of leadership, you want to get to another place, whether you are in a certain industry, you want to relocate to another industry, one of the issues that keeps them stagnating is this bad animal called mediocrity. Mediocrity comes from the Greek word mediokris, which simply means in between or halfway the mountain. Like when you are climbing a mountain and you stop halfway, you don't continue. And when you reach at that place, you are just comfortable where you are. Hey, I always say that the mediocre people, the average people, are those who are the best among the worst and the worst among the best. So when they call the best, you are the worst. When they call the worst, you are the best. So you are, those are the people you always hear saying, you say, how are you? 50-50. Fair. Life is just there. That is the average class. So
you're lukewarm.
Lukewarm, if I'm to use that indeed. You are neither hot nor cold. You are just in the middle right there. So that is one cause of stagnation. If you are just always on average, you are okay with good.
Right.
But good is the enemy of great. If you want to do great things, stop pursuing the good ones. Try to imagine.
Wow, say that again.
If you want to get the great things, stop pursuing the good ones. Because good is the enemy of great. Good is never good enough. All of us have a seed of greatness in us. All of us have that seed of excellency. You are a Bible reader. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 13. You know what it says? God says, I will make you the head and not the tail.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a head that is somewhere in the middle of the stomach?
No.
The head is always on top. So what he's actually saying is you have to pursue the topmost results in your life. Yes, stop this issue of mediocrity. You always hear people say, like campusers, if you're a campuser watching right now, and you are saying, as long as I don't get that retake, I think I will have done well. No. Why should you say you want to just miss a retake? Why don't you say you want to get a D1, want to get a distinction 1? Hey, why should you say as long as I get a pass degree, I will go out of the university and go and get my job? Why don't you go for the first class? You get my point? Hey, when they said that there is a possibility of 100%, there is no sin you scoring 100%.
I know a parent whose child, got 91, 95, 96, but somehow in a class of 50 people, this child was the 28th. And the child was so stressed out. So, the parent is asking themselves, how can my child have 90s and be the 28th? I'm so stressed. And then, of course, all of us were like, but how many people have got 100 and they are not the first? Like, well, the class is just brilliant. I'm like, okay, let your child be among the brilliant ones.
Exactly. And you see, be the first one to be among the excellent. You get the point.
Right.
And one other reason why many people stagnate, let me borrow Bill Hybels' words. Bill Hybels wrote a book in 2008, and one of the chapters, he gives it a title of Selective Sluggardliness. To be a sluggard is to simply be a lazy person. So when he says selective sluggardliness, most of us are selective lazy people. In other words, when it comes to TV presentation, you do your very best. You are so lovely at it. And when you start to speak, people say, amazing. But then, for instance, in your private life, when it comes to something like hygiene, maybe, there you are a lazy person. or you are excellent in academics, but when it comes to public speaking, to communication, you are lazy in that area. So you select the areas in which you want to be lazy and areas in which you want to excel.
I think now you're talking to me. Not for hygiene though.
I know.
I'm being good there. But
so
there
you find somebody is working
intentionally
in a certain organization, in a certain school, in an education institution, in a faith-based organization. When it comes to issues of reporting, he's very good at making wonderful reports.
Right.
But when it comes to time management, he is the one who always comes very late, maybe something like 20 minutes late in the morning, and goes away 20 minutes earlier than the time for going. So while he is excelling in the documentation and recording, he is a selective, lazy person, a selective sluggard when it comes to time management. So that also will keep you down. There is no business of saying, I am a powerful speaker and a very poor time manager, or I am
a procrastinator.
I am a great, excellent procrastinator. This morning I was speaking with my wife about that thing of saying, when we are talking about excellency, you should be excellent in positive attributes, not excellent in negative attributes. For instance, they say you are an excellent thief. That doesn't add up.
No, you're excelling at robbery.
Exactly.
You're good at what you do.
Yes. One other reason why many people stagnate in their work, whether it's a job or any other work, is this issue of trying to go for the greatest risk. You know what that is?
No.
The greatest risk is risking nothing. Many people are so risk allergic that when you tell them to just go and do something they have never done, they will freeze into inaction. But you know, the greatest risk is to risk nothing. I read a book by Dr. Michael W. Massa, and it's titled How Winners Do It. He says, never fear to get into the swimming pool simply because you don't know how to swim. He says, just jump into the swimming pool with both your legs, even if you don't know how deep it is, and you will figure out how to swim once you are in the swimming pool.
But most of the time...
And he says, if God helps you and you don't drown, and when you are coming out, people are cheering that you are a wonderful swimmer, never even tell them that in the first place you didn't know how to swim. Celebrate with them. That's how life is. Take risks. If you don't take risk, when you remove risk out of your life, you remove opportunities out of your life. So part of excellence is going for even what you don't really understand as much as possible. Because you see, you can never say, I am right now going to Ginger, so I must see Ginger from here in Kampala where I'm standing.
Before I go.
Because the road has corners, the road has ups, the road has downs.
Yes.
So if you say that is the end of the road, probably when you reach there, you realize it was only a bend in the road and you have to continue. So don't wait to first see the whole road very straight. Just, if you can see a simple flicker of light, start the journey. That's very, very, very important.
Wow. Samuel Bakutana this morning from Delta Communities Uganda, talking about aiming for excellence. And I know many of you have actually requested for Sam to come back because he did a phenomenal job the other day. So we are looking at how you can aim for excellence.
Yes.
Couple of things to note, you know, selective sluggardness, and I know he was talking to me when he was talking about that. Most of us choose what, where to be lazy and not to be lazy, and of course, we are risk allergic.
We have risk phobia.
if that word is there, risk phobia. So our Facebook page is Morning at NTV. You can also tweet us at Morning at NTV. Tag me at MBGold2, hashtag Inspiration Tuesdays, and of course, let's continue the conversation there. Again, now, because, you know, business people, people in the job market, are there excuses? Because I know I've made a couple of excuses for not moving to the next level.
All of us are culprits of that at one point or the other.
To the people you've talked to the work you've done, what are those excuses that we give that make us unable to move to the next thing?
Excuses. I would first of all say this. No one is a failure until that very person begins to blame someone else for their situation. One of the reasons why we remain where we are is this thing you have called excuses. I always want to call it this disease of excusiasis. A virus that has eaten as many people as you can ever imagine.
Yeah.
And some of the excuses that people give, for instance, they say, you see, I'm in a wrong job, so I just can't progress. I wish I was a presenter on any TV, not on this other TV.
I would be
far better. I would be flying. But just like you have said already at the beginning of this, this segment of everyday life, whether you are a CEO, a manager, or a sweeper, just be a great that one. You can be a great sweeper. So wherever you are, you don't have to give an excuse that you are in a wrong place. And by the way, let me ask you, why are you in a wrong place now that you know it's a wrong place?
You may be the wrong person.
Maybe you are the wrong person in that right place. You are not in a wrong place. You are in a right place, but you are the wrong person for that right job. You see, nothing, I'm just writing a book, I'm about to finish it, and the title is Nothing Changes If Nothing Changes. So if you know that something is not working out, this is the time for you to change something. Because nothing changes if nothing changes. So that is one excuse that is always given. I'm in a wrong place. So also, what are you doing there? You are not a tree. Move. Get to another place. Even a tree is cut and taken to another place.
Yes.
That's one excuse. Excuse number two is saying, I don't have enough knowledge to do this work. And we have a proverb in one of the botanical languages of this country, which, when directly translated, says that a stone that you have already seen cannot hit your hoe, unless you continue intentionally and stubbornly to hit the stone. Yeah. Now that you already know that your challenge is lack of enough knowledge, so what are you doing about it? That's the issue. You see, what we are dealing with now is to do away with the excuses that stop us from getting to where we are supposed to be, to excel. What are you doing about it? And indeed, like you know, God's people perish because of lack of knowledge. You are very right. This is the information age. There was a time whereby excellence was measured by how many baskets of fruits you have come with at home during those days when we were still bush people. There was a time when success would be measured by how many knives you've smelted during the
Stone Age.
Stone Age. But let us fast forward to around the 1950s, 1960s, when there was a heavy move of independence on the African continent. Success would be measured by how many quotations you can cite, off cuff, off your mind, from Ngugi wa Thiong'o's I Remember When I Want, Ngahe Kandenda. A quotation from Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal. If you could make a quotation from Chinua Achebe's No Longer Tease, you would be voted for MP without campaigning. That was the measure of success.
Right.
But let's now come to this age. We are no longer in that age, though we still have a few traces of that. Right now we are in the information age. Whoever has the information has a relative advantage. So now that you know your challenge to getting to where you want to be is a lack of information, what are you doing about it?
You know, you're talking about information. I watched a feature where they were talking about how internet fraud is done. You know, people are using information, and where they can translate that information into money, then they have it. So if you have information, don't know its value, someone else is going to use it, your own information, to make money off you without you knowing.
Exactly. Exactly.
We are now, you know, I was talking to a couple of friends, and even in the telecom companies, you know, where many people are losing their jobs, engineers somehow don't seem to make sense anymore, because companies are hosting each other on the same antennas, and you know, so site engineers, we don't need them. How do you turn yourself then, where you realize in a couple of years I'm not going to be useful in this company or at this job, or my business needs to transcend to another thing? How do you then work your way?
One of the most important tools for a life of excellency is not only self-reinvention, but it is proactive living. Let me repeat that. One of the greatest tools of a life of excellency is not only reinventing yourself, but it is also living proactively. Now that you are already seeing the kind of industry that you are in, and you see what is happening, you are trying to see the trends and how they are moving on. Are you planning proactively to put your foot into the future before you reach in the future? Like you have said, trends can easily be seen and read, can easily be understood. So, for instance, if you see that, like you were saying, the telecom industry, a lot of things are being married together. You hear a lot of marriages of companies, and many people are losing jobs. What are you planning in advance? And in that respect, how are you going to reinvent yourself? One of the things that makes a snake live for a long period of time is its reinvention. What it does is that it just gets out of its skin and comes afresh, and you see it and you see a new shining, radiant kind of snake. It puts off the other the other skin.
Right.
So now that you see you have a skin that may not be exactly relevant for the next couple of weeks or months or years, then get out of that skin, get a new relevant skin. You get my point. Reinvent yourself. That's the same thing with eagles. If you want to fly like an eagle, you can't continue flocking with ducks. I have already said that. Or chicken. So you need to know how eagles live their life. One of the ways that the eagles try to reinvent themselves is by going to the wilderness, and they spend something like 3 months reinventing themselves, removing all the feathers, making sure they hit the beak onto the stones and the whatever, and it gets out and the new one comes out. It's a painful experience. Yes. Go and read about eagles and you will be amazed.
Wow.
So they can even live for 70 years because of that one thing, reinventing themselves. So if you are facing that kind of circumstance in the job market, in the marketplace where you are, reinvent yourself. Think proactively. Ask yourself, for instance, which other new knowledge will I need? So where can I get it from? Is it by reading a book? Is it by attending a seminar? Is it going for another certificate somewhere to empower myself? Is it taking a millionaire out for lunch and I listen to his wisdom that can make me better? I do that quite often.
I'm thinking of taking you for lunch because...
You will not have made a mistake at all. I can assure you of that. So that's proactive thinking. And then also, you need to be an opportunist of every situation in form of learning. There is no experience that is wasted once you learn something from it. They always say that experience is the best teacher. Let me add, only if you learn from it. You get my point? So in that circumstance where you find yourself, if you are going to excel, ask yourself, what am I learning from this? And so what do I need to do about it? Every circumstance has a lesson in it, and we need to always extract it. The other time I told you, suppose you are being chased out of the town. They say, nobody wants you in this town. What you have to do is simply pretend like you are the one heading the delegation, go waving at people and go out of the town. You don't have to cry. That is how life is. If somebody throws an orange at you, don't cry that it has hit you. Get it, squeeze it, get the orange juice out of it. Let life continue. Learn out of every situation that comes to you. Some people don't learn at all. That is why they make the same mistake over and over and over again. The other first organization you went to, you were fired. You went to a second company, you were fired. You went to another business entity, you were fired. What have you learned out of that? Could be one thing that has been causing you to be fired. You are hired in the morning, fired in the afternoon. Appointed in the afternoon, disappointed in the evening. You are given the letter in the morning, they cancel it in the evening. Why? Have you learned from that situation to reinvent yourself and be better?
Someone I look up to a lot says, every time you make a mistake, make sure it's a new mistake. That is the only time people
don't recycle your mistakes.
Don't recycle mistakes, and everyone will accept you.
Exactly.
Because it's a new thing all the time. As we wrap this up, a couple of golden things in 1 or 2 minutes.
If you are going to excel in everything that you are doing, start to treasure a resource called today. Yesterday is a cancelled check. Tomorrow is a promissory note. Today is the only cash you have. You have to either invest it well or spend it wisely. One of the reasons why many people don't excel is simply because they are always saying, tomorrow is there. I will do it tomorrow. But why do you have to continue postponing? Because they say that procrastination is the thief of time. So do today what you have to do today. When tomorrow comes, you will do tomorrow what you are supposed to do tomorrow. Don't get yourself into the tyranny, the brutality of the deadlines and the urgent simply because you are always pushing off things that you are supposed to do today. Excel in today. By the end of the day, you should look back and say, I have done my best today. On my things to do today, I have ticked off more than 50%, and I have done the 20% most important. That's why I am getting 80% of the results at the end of the day. So do the very best you can. Good is not good enough. Good is the enemy of great. Go for the very best that you can, because if you don't go for the best will not go for you. Go for the best that you can, and you'll always get it.
Awesome. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to also come and
do you know this David Kanje? On Twitter, is just tweeting everything you've said.
Amazing.
If you want to be an ego, stop moving with ducks.
Exactly.
I listened to TD Jakes and he was talking about how egos work and how you can make a chicken hang on to you if you're an ego.
Yes.
And before you know it, it's just
specking on you.
Specking on you. Before you know it, you're down with
In one of my books, I write and say, if you walk with 9 fools, you will become the 10th. There is no shortcut.
Oh, Sam, yes, where do people find you?
You can find me on my phone number first and foremost, which is 0782163416. But you can also send me an email at deltacu11@gmail.com. But also find me on Facebook, Samuel Ebakutana, on Twitter at Amutsam, on LinkedIn, Samuel Ebakutana, and you can even check my blog, www.excellentleading.wordpress.com.
Awesome. We'll be sharing those contacts on our Facebook page too and Twitter. And of course, let's continue the conversation there. Borrowing from, you know, a church I know in this city, turning ordinary people into fearless influencers.
Exactly.
And we're trying to do that this morning. Isma is standing by. I do not know whether most athletes or sportsmen or clubs at that, you know, in that regard aim for excellence. But I've heard of something called the financial fair play. And it has caught Man City because it's trying to do some dirty business in the back.
Not excellent work.
What's that?
I think the first thing you say, the largest percentage I think of sportsmen do aim for excellence. I look at Ibrahim Sekaja, watching him from Kawempe, Kataka to where he's got. Oh my God, he plays in the same team with Thierry Henry. And the second one I think is a rule that will never work. UEFA have got to be smarter. Financial fair play is a rubbish rule. Teams will break it. PSG and Man City are the teams that were banned from last season. And actually, they're the ones who go to the market and do the most business. And I love Arsene Wenger's opinions about the financial fair play. When he says Man City will, all they'll need to do is to buy clubs across the world, loan players, buy players and put them in those clubs, and then bring back to Manchester City on loan. That's very smart because the financial fair play says all clubs by, I think, around 2018 should be able to only spend what they earn in order to cut down the debt of European football, which is the biggest problem right now. And at that point, our clubs will be better off, but I don't think that will ever happen. Football always be in debt because the people who support it and those who run it have no shame in running it in debt, with the exception of the Arsenal, of course, who don't run their club in debt. But that's one of the rules that is helping Man City sign Frank Lampard. We'll talk about that. We'll also have a hint about Moses Kipsero, his return and everything, and the events from Glasgow. The Uganda Cranes now prepare for a tough group where they'll travel to West Africa on no less than 3 occasions. This morning, Louis van Gaal beat Liverpool or Manchester United. We'll talk about that too, Brian, when you join me.
All right. In the words of Sam Bakutana, the greatest risk is to risk doing nothing. So let me take a break. When we come back, we'll talk
Go
sport.
and take your
Stay
risks.
with us. Thank you.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
Nze Tony. I've received the Banange chaddala tebalimba Airtel kagwirawo sente nzifunye ne message yinu. I have received 200,000 shillings of Uganda.